Hi students, welcome to week 4. In this week we're going to begin our transition from talking about sort of how systems work, right? So we've had these big discussions of ecosystems. We talked about populations in ecosystems, right? We were looking at sort of how populations of natural things, how they're impacted by their environment, and then we also took a look at the special case of humans. Now we're going to be moving into talking about very specific problems, if you want to think of it that way. So when you think of environmental science and you think of the impact humans are having on the environment, these are the types of things we think about. We think about things like pollution, different types of pollution, air pollution and water pollution. We think about problems with garbage and trash and recycling. We think about energy, climate change, all of these types of things. So now over the next several weeks, that's where we're going to shift our focus. We're going to go from discussing sort of how the natural world works to very specific things that humans are impacting on this planet, that impact not just the living things that are here, but in many cases they also impact us too. Our first discussion is going to be about air pollution. So you're going to learn a little bit more about what constitutes an air pollutant. We'll talk about primary pollutants versus secondary pollutants. You'll learn a little bit more about pollution in developing countries versus places like here in the United States. And we're also going to talk a fair amount about indoor air pollution. There's a part of your lab this week that will specifically focus on that. Speaking of labs, I know the population lab was tricky last week. I'm actually slightly surprised I didn't get more questions than I got. I got a few, but I'm surprised I didn't get more. I know the math there, specifically towards the end when you were trying to figure out future population growth. I know that's tricky. I really do. And beyond giving you as many examples as I possibly could of what it looks like, I know it can be a difficult concept to grasp. Don't worry, it's not something I expect you to do on the exam. You're not going to see a question and you need a calculator to pull it out and actually figure out population growth in the future. So please don't be concerned about that. That's not something I'm going to ask you to do on the exam. So it's a good exercise in the sense that you can see how we project population numbers and where these figures come from and how we're determining it. But again, it's not something I'm going to test you on, so don't worry so much about that. Lab for this week, we're not using any of that math. We're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to give you some simulated data. If we were on campus together, we would go out and collect this data ourselves using some equipment that we have. Since this is an online lab, I'm giving you the data instead, and then you will then analyze that data and answer some questions. It's going to be kind of a common theme that you're going to see over the next several weeks with our labs. I'll try to get you outside for some small portion of it. You'll come back inside. You'll have some sort of data that I will give you, and then you'll analyze and interpret that data. So that's kind of a pattern you can expect to see for this week. Other things, just to kind of remind you of, I have posted study materials for our first lecture exam. So the first lecture exam is coming up in 2 weeks. I give you an option of whether you want to take, I have 2 exam formats. I have a traditional exam format, standard multiple choice, a few true-false questions, very sort of kind of like an exam you've probably seen many, many times before. I also have an alternative exam, and that is my essay-only exam. Very different. It's just essay questions. However, I give you the questions ahead of time so that you can actually see exactly what's going to be on the exam and prepare for those questions on the exam. So students will sometimes ask me, which one should I take? Should I take the traditional? Should I take the essay exam? I say it really depends on how well you express yourself in writing. If you feel like you're someone who expresses yourself very well through writing, I say go for the essay exam. I've got the most flexibility in awarding points on that. Each question is worth 25 points. So even if you don't get it 100% correct, I can still give you a fair amount of credit as long as your answer makes sense to me and as long as you're following the guidelines of the question. With the traditional exam, you're either right or wrong, right? There's no gray area there. I can't give you any wiggle room with your answers there. So again, I don't want to encourage anyone who might not necessarily be really good at, again, writing things out. But if you are, I kind of would recommend that exam over the traditional exam. If you do just fine with the traditional exam, standard multiple choice, and that works for you, then please feel free to take that exam. Both of these use HonorLock. It's just an exam proctoring system. I have a video here on how that works and what you'll need. It's just an extension that you download on your computer using the Chrome browser. You do have to use the Chrome browser. You have an extension that you download that enables HonorLock. It's very, very simple. It only takes a couple minutes, and the exam will automatically check to see if you have it. If it doesn't, it'll say, please download this. And if you do have it, then you're good to go. You also will need a webcam. So please make sure that your laptop, if that's what you have, is equipped with one, or if you have a desktop computer, you have a webcam. If you have neither of those, there are options. The college does have Chromebooks to lend out to you, so that certainly is a possibility as well. And you can reach out to me if you need more information on that, but there's a loan page on the library that you can request materials for, and you can very easily request that if necessary. All right, back to the folder then. So continuing on with our discussion leaders, thank you last week, discussion leaders, for leading discussion. There were some really interesting articles that were posted about, in this case, population. So what's going to happen to the human population? So there were some really nice, thought-provoking things and some good discussions that I'm looking forward to grading this week as far as your responses to those. If you are a discussion leader, and again, you can sort of watch this video to understand what you need to do to post a discussion forum. And then for everyone else, all you have to do is click the link here for discussion, and it'll take you to your group discussion page. Also keep in mind that this week we have a new assignment, and I previewed this a little bit for y'all last week, but our green technology, I need you to come up with some ideas. What do you all want to do? Would you like to, so that the Green Tech project, just as a reminder, let me find, it's in the additional information page here. So in our additional information page, I've got some information about the Green Technology project right here. And it essentially is, I want you to do a presentation. Your presentation can be anything. I give you lots of options. You can write a paper, you can do a PowerPoint, you can record a video. There's a whole lot of ways to do this project. But essentially, I want you to share with everybody something that's kind of new and exciting and upcoming, that's trying to solve an environmental problem. So it's trying to tackle something. So what are we trying to tackle? Are we trying to tackle plastic pollution? Are we trying to tackle air pollution? New types of energy? New ways of getting around through transportation? What are we tackling here? So there's a whole host of different technologies out there that you all can investigate. And this project essentially is just looking at what's available and what you think you might want to do your presentation on. So this is just a brainstorm. It's very simple, and I break down the categories here for you. The topic brainstorm is due this week. Again, really simple. All it is these are some things I might be interested in, right? So just give me some ideas, tell me a little bit about each one, and that's all we have for this week. So the idea here is from here, you'll move on to narrowing your focus down to a single topic. And then from there, you'll really work on pulling out information to make that presentation. But that's, again, that's down the road. You've got plenty of time to think about it. But for this week, your first step is, again, this presentation brainstorm, right? So what are some things you might be interested in? If you are interested in, let's say you're interested in transportation, right? And we're familiar with electric cars. Electric cars aren't new, okay? So please don't give me a presentation on electric cars. But what might be different is electric semis, right? So that's kind of a new form, right? Rather than just your standard passenger vehicles, which we have a whole host of models for electric cars. Now we have companies that are developing, large transportation, things like semi-trucks that actually would be electric. So that's kind of interesting. That's new. So again, think of new takes on things, not the same old, same old. Like wind energy isn't really new. It's been around for a really long time. But if you can come up with something new about wind energy and share it with us, that would make a really great project. So that's kind of the different thing for this week that we have, is we have one additional assignment beyond what you're used to, and that assignment is for the Green Tech project. So I think that about does it for this week. I think everything seems to be going well. As always, I will answer your questions from Socrative on the message forum. So I do have the past weeks here, weeks 1 and week 2. I'll work on week 3 today so that you all can have the answers to those questions. But as always, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know if there's anything that I can do to help. Thanks, everyone.